Welcome to Wine with HR. I'm Jules.
Hey there, I'm Trish.
Lawyers turned HR professionals. Through our company, Monarch Endeavors, we guide employers through their oh shit moments with their employees.
In this podcast, we will discuss some of the most common and commonly frustrating HR problems while enjoying our favorite adult beverage, wine.
So sit back, grab a glass if you choose, and join us as we think about and drink about all things HR.
Welcome to this episode of Wine with HR. This week, we are focusing on those of you who've been recently promoted.
Woo!
First off, congrats! Yay! But now what? That is the question. What kind of manager do you want to be? And how can you avoid some of the pitfalls that many managers fall into?
With great power comes great responsibility.
Okay, see, I'm singing the Spider-Man theme here.
Yeah.
So you could sing for us again, Jules, just so you know.
I don't know the Spider-Man theme.
Oh, no. I'm not singing.
All right. With great power comes great responsibility. Now you're in charge of the people who used to be your friends.
Oh.
Woo! Congratulations. Yes. Or you're now managing people that you also bitched about other managers to.
Oh.
So you know
Oops.
all the things they like or don't like.
Oops.
Yeah. So again, in this episode, we're going to talk about some of the common mistakes new managers make and how to avoid them. But we also want to point out that even if you have been a manager for a while, this all applies to you as well, because you can reset the clock, wipe the slate clean at any time by following some of the tips that we give you today. But first, Trish, what you drinking?
I am drinking something super, super special today. I am so excited to share it. It's probably something that most people haven't heard of. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
It's called water. I mean, I could make it fancy French and go low,
Yeah.
but it's water. We got home very late last night and I did not have a chance to get to the grocery store. I am very, very upset, but I promise you, as I'm on my way to Texas to teach a seminar tomorrow, I will be having some good wine and unfortunately won't be able to report on it.
Well, you can report on it in the next episode. You can just do a double report.
Oh, I love that. All right. What about you?
So I am drinking a Sauvignon Blanc, which I know will not surprise you.
Nope.
But what will surprise you is it's from California.
What?
Yes. And typically, you know, you and I don't like those. But I will say that this one is very, very nice. It's from Michael David Winery. It's a 2022 from Lodi, California. And it reminds me a little bit more of a Chenin Blanc or something, a little bit of a white blend, but it is 100% Sauvignon Blanc. We had it last night with this delicious mussels recipe that had mint and lemon and
amazing.
Sauvignon Blanc. Yes, and it was so good. And the wine just really complemented it. It's not quite as bitey, my favorite word when I'm talking about Sauvignon Blancs. It's not quite as bitey as the New Zealand ones. It's just a really nice, pleasant wine. Definitely good for summertime.
Nice. California's stepping it up. Whoop, whoop.
I know.
They just keep getting better and better out there.
They've been listening to us.
Yes. I'm sure it's all about us.
All right, Trish. So let's get back to the WHINE and it's time for some stats.
Stat time. We need to have like a little
music for
like
that.
little stat time music. As always, any of the stats that we refer to or the articles in which we found them, you'll be able to find those in the show notes. So let me start with our first one. This one is from LinkedIn, and it's an article that cites a study by CEB Global. In this one, this is crazy. They found that 60% of new managers fail within the first 24 months that they're in their role.
Ugh.
I mean, ouch.
Yeah.
All right, are you ready? 50% fail within their first year.
Wow.
So, when a transitioning leader is struggling, their direct reports perform 15% worse on average than those who have a high performing manager. So, when they say it rolls downhill, goes to this too. There are also 20% more, by the way, to leave an organization or be disengaged, those employees. And then we have one more stat I want to give you before I switch it over to Jules. Actively disengaged employees cost the US. Now, you guys have a seat here, grab a drink of wine, but don't spit it out when you hear this. $483 billion to $605 billion each year in lost productivity. Now, that did come from a different LinkedIn article, but Julie is going to share with you more stats from that one. But I had to share that one. That's just crazy.
It is crazy. That's a lot of money. I feel like, hang on.
Oh,
need more wine for that. I need more wine for the statistics I'm going to share too. So from this second LinkedIn article, again, we'll have them in the show notes for you. 85% of new managers do not get any training prior to becoming a manager, which Trish and I can attest to that.
Yes.
That unfortunately is very common. You've heard us say it before. Managers get promoted, but they're not given the training or the tools or the resources that they need to actually do the job right. And then they fail within 2 years, just like Trisha said. So you can see how it happens.
Yeah.
59% said that they do not feel like they are supported in their new role. That's alarming.
Wow.
Yep. 63% still do not feel effective after 6 months on the job. That decreases a little bit, but it's still at 50% after 12 months on the job.
And don't you have to think that those numbers, if that's the numbers that are being reported, how many people didn't say that because they were afraid to look weak or like they didn't know what they were doing?
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
I've got two more quick ones. 69% of managers say they are uncomfortable communicating with their employees. We're going to touch on that one. We're going to give you some tips. Yeah, because that's not good.
No.
That's 2/3. That's not good. And at some point in their career, 50% of U.S. adults have left their job to get away from their manager in order to improve their overall life. So not just to get a better job, to improve their overall life. Yes, and we've all been there. We've all had that manager who made our lives miserable.
Oh my goodness.
So we don't want that to be you.
No.
But because we haven't depressed you enough or scared you enough, Trisha's got a few more stats, but these ones actually show what happens when you're doing what you should be doing as a manager, when you're successful as a manager.
Yes, these actually are exciting. So we brought you down. Now we're going to lift you up a little bit. So think about that stat that we were saying, that when your manager isn't successful, neither then are their subordinates. So now let's flip it and say, if you have those engaged employees, here's what we're looking at. A 41% reduction in absenteeism, a 17% increase in productivity, a 28% reduction in shrinkage. Now, this is that dollar amount of unaccounted for, and I wish y'all could see me because I'm doing air quotes here, unaccounted for or lost merchandise, 40% reduction in quality defects, 70% decrease in employee safety incidents. That's huge.
Yes.
10% increase in customer metrics, 20% increase in sales, and overall a 21% greater profitability. So again, that was with engaged employees.
Yes. And as we saw from the prior stats, if you have a good manager, you are more likely to have engaged employees. So suffice it to say that bad management leads to bad results and good management leads to good results. Now, no one, or at least we hope no one, starts out wanting to be a bad manager, but it happens. And I have seen it happen to really good people.
That's true.
The most common mistakes we see are trying to remain friends with the people you now manage, worrying too much about your direct reports liking you, micromanaging everything, or going on a power trip / going into dictator mode. Trish, you got any others to add to that list?
Eek. I'm still... I'm having flashbacks to my own experiences here. Now, those are some of my favorites, actually, that you brought up.
Okay, good. We'll focus on those. So what can you do about it? Well, now we'll get to our tips and tricks. So, Trish, what's your first tip for what new managers or managers who need to start over can do to avoid some of these obstacles?
Know yourself. That's self-awareness. One of the things that I have often shared with people is it's really important to know where you are going to succeed and where you may need some help. So if you take an honest assessment of your strengths and your weaknesses, or what is it that you think you're going to find most challenging in this job, then at that point, you can sit down and say, okay, do I have the skills to meet that challenge? Or do I need to develop those skills to meet that challenge? And then come up with your game plan. So are you going to ask for help? Are you going to ask for training? Maybe reach out to a mentor, someone that you've always admired, that you're like, wow, that person always seems to be a wonderful leader. When they share ideas, people really like to follow or like to go with them, because we always say leading isn't about being in front or being behind and kind of cracking the whip. It's about being with your employees. So what is it that you find beneficial, or what is it that you've always enjoyed? And then kind of focus on that. But if you don't think that you're there yet, those mentors or those trainings can really improve those skills. So you have that desire, now you have the knowledge, and then put it into effect. What about you, Jules? What would be your first tip?
My first tip would be to be upfront about the change in working relationships when you shift from that manager, from that coworker role to that manager role. So we're going to talk about communication in several different ways, but on this particular tip, I want to focus on talking to your employees individually and discussing how the working relationship is going to change, because you probably have a different relationship with each employee. And think about how nervous you are now that you are the manager. They are just as nervous about you being the manager.
So true.
Yes. Remember, we had a few episodes back, we had the one about working with friends, and we talked a little bit about this, but let them voice any concerns that they may have. You can voice any concerns you may have, and then discuss openly how you will navigate issues when they come up. So, this took me a little while to learn, but I ended up especially when I was at my law firm, I mentored a lot of younger associates. I had a lot of younger associates working for me, and I would sometimes have to give them hard truths, about their work product or something that they had missed, or, and we all know I am very nice and I don't like to hurt people's feelings, but I realized somewhere along the way that it's much kinder to be honest with people and to tell them what they need to know so that they can improve. So I got much better about those conversations. I still had empathy. I still connected with them, but I wasn't afraid any longer to be like, okay, hey, listen, here's where you screwed up on this. Here's how to avoid it going forward, or you may not have known this, whatever, however I needed to, deliver the message. But I think it's really important, especially when you have been coworkers with somebody, to just sit down and say, look, the rules are going to change, and I feel weird about it. I'm sure you feel weird about it. So let's talk about it, because I am going to have to hold you accountable. I am going to have to give you performance reviews. I am going to have to write you up if you screw up. And I will do those things.
I love that.
So like setting the boundaries, but just being open about it and acknowledging that something is changing.
That's so good. It's okay to acknowledge that something is awkward or weird.
Yes.
We tell HR professionals that all the time. Go ahead, acknowledge it.
Yeah, somehow it makes people like relax and exhale. Because it's not the elephant in the room anymore. It's like, okay, yeah, we're going to talk about it.
It's out there and all its glory.
It's out there. Yep.
I'm going to bring in another article. This one is a Harvard Business Review article. And they were talking about building a culture of feedback. And anyone who's taken any of my seminars knows, and if you guys have ever tuned into an episode of Wine with HR, you know how important Julie and I think that feedback, or even feed forward. If you don't know what that is, look at one of our past. I'm not going to tell you anything. You got to go find it. But truly and honestly, building that culture of feedback from the beginning. Talk to the members of your team, first of all, and let them know why, right? Julie was saying this before, like we want to talk to them as a group. We can talk to them as individuals. And then you're going to just tell them, this is why I want to do this. I want you to feel comfortable to bring anything to me. I want to be able to speak to you and also share what I think that you're doing. So this goes along with exactly what Julie has already been saying. As she was talking about being able to discuss the relationship, feedback is exactly the same thing. So, couple of questions that they have suggested for your guiding the meeting. Am I clear in the expectations I set? I was having a conversation actually with someone today, and I realized that our definition of the word screen was very different. I'm thinking like a television screen, and she's thinking like a movie screen. Very, very different when you're right. So think about what expectations you are setting, and are the definitions clear? Does everyone define them the same way? Are you giving them enough time to complete their tasks? Ask them. Have a conversation and try to figure out. Now, let me interrupt myself and say, on the flip side of that, there's also something that says, okay, you're taking too long, right? So this is kind of that teeter-totter balance. You want to give someone enough time to complete the task, but there's also an expectation that you're not going to take 3 weeks to do it. You should have been able to do that in 2. And again, having these conversations in the expectations and what they need from you as their leader and where they need to go will all help you. What about your communication style? I will say again, anyone who takes my seminars knows that every night after we're done, I say, is there anything I can do better for you tomorrow? Is there any way for your learning style that works better that I'm not doing? How am I communicating with you? And I ask after every single day just to make sure. So I think that when you're starting out as a manager, this might not be too hard. You would be shocked at how welcome people are like, wow. Well, yeah, everything was, either it was great or could you do this? And you have to be open, by the way, to understanding that there may be some things that you could do better as well. And then what do you need from me or the company to get past the roadblocks you're facing? This is one of my absolute favorites in this section. How can I help you? Again, I think I've said it that one of my attendees in one of my past classes, how can I help you succeed today? And I love that. That is what you always want to think, because if you're helping your employees succeed, they're going to in turn help you succeed, help the company succeed, and you know where that's going to go. What about you, Jules? Do you have another one?
I do, but first I want to touch on a couple of things you said. First of all, I love that question at the end of the day or at the end of the project. What can I do differently tomorrow to help you better succeed, or for your learning style, or to support you? I think that's just a great way to show that you're always open to modifying or changing things. The other thing you said that I thought was such an important point, which is not specific to this subject, but I think it's very important for managers to think about, is how we have to have agreed upon definitions of the terms that we are using. So I had a situation as well where there was just a complete difference. I had a group where they were trying to determine, kind of like write their own code of conduct. And they were all using the same terms: professionalism, respect, collegiality, all the same terms. But they were having disagreements about, like, several of them were thinking that certain people within the group were not displaying those attributes, right? So, but they're all using the same terms. So I finally said, okay, well, how are we defining these? Because if we're defining them differently, we can use the same terms. We can all agree that, yes, we should all be professional. We should all be respectful. But if your definition of professionalism and respect look different than this person's, then you're talking past each other.
Yep.
And you don't have a common ground from which you're starting. And that is really, really important. So I think one thing that new managers could do as sort of a trust building exercise with their team is to have okay, let's make our own code of conduct. Let's make our own ground rules for how we are going to interact with one another, and talk about some of those terms and what they mean to everybody. I'll give an example, but in this particular case, one of the things was about what the purpose of a particular meeting was for. And there was one person who thought that the purpose of the meeting, was to get through the items on the agenda. And there was a set period of time, and we had to tick things off, and we had to keep things moving and make decisions and keep things going. And the other person thought, well, no, we're all together. So this is our time to debate and to talk things through and to, come up with new ideas. And as you can imagine, that gets to very different results.
Yes.
And so, both people are thinking the other one is disrespecting them. And that wasn't actually what was happening. It's just that they had very different definitions of what the purpose of that meeting was. So I think it's really that could be a great exercise as a new manager to have with your team, to talk through some of that and really just, again, sort of clear the air, start fresh, talk about what the purpose of every time you get together, what is the purpose of this? What's the goal? What are we trying to accomplish?
I love.
Do you love news about LinkedIn, Indeed, Google, and just about every other recruitment tech company out there?
Hell yeah. I'm Chad.
I'm Cheese.
We're the Chad and Cheese Podcast.
All the latest recruiting news and insights are on our show,
dripping in snark and attitude.
Subscribe today wherever you listen to your podcasts. We out.
So then, speaking of the trust issue, I think it's really important for managers, whether new or if they've been at it for some time, to remember that you have to give trust to get trust. So You have to show your employees that they can trust you before you can expect them to trust you. And one of the best ways to do that is to not micromanage.
No, micromanaging isn't trusting.
No, people don't like it. People don't like it.
Imagine.
No. So set clear expectations when you assign a task to someone, of course, and then trust them to get the task done. I think another thing that you could say, and this goes back to having those conversations with people about how the relationship is going to change, is that you can say to somebody, listen, you never have to wonder where you stand with me. If I'm upset with you about something, I'm going to tell you. If I haven't said anything, then I'm not upset with you. Right?
Huge.
Because we all
I wish people would do this in all areas.
Right. Because we all get in our own heads and we're like, oh, she didn't say good morning to me, or she didn't, approach me the same way as normal, or she was super short with me, so she must be upset with something that I did. And you start spiraling, and it's like, no. I will tell you. Let's just put that on the table. If there's something wrong, I'm going to tell you.
Mic drop. Because we haven't had one yet.
That's true.
We haven't had one in this episode yet. We need it.
What else can you do to build trust, Trish?
Well, let's think of some fun things. Here's another one from that same article. Let's create some rituals with your team that help build the trust. Love Meme Monday. Ask everyone on your team to share a quick and appropriate. Now, speaking of defining things, we should probably define what appropriate is to you all, because what is appropriate to some is not appropriate to others. So share a quick and appropriate image or a GIF that captures how their weekend went. So fun. Fun. Remember that each one of your team, they all come from a different background. So if you could have each member of your team write down what their core values are, then what you can do is create these like virtual backgrounds based on those words. And then your individual team members, when they're looking at those backgrounds, then they can actually say, "Oh, I'm going to take this one. Oh, I love those words. That's how I'm feeling this particular day." And so it also is kind of like a visual cue to people okay, Trisha's had a bad day today or a bad weekend, or Julie's like, wow, she's going to be on fire today. Bet she'll be singing. And so it lets you know kind of in advance where people might be coming from, again, so that we can give a little grace as we go through our days. And then this is something that I have played with my cousins when I was out in California, and I've tried to do it with when I go to my friends that have children. Some people call it rose and thorn. We always call it high and low. So what was your high today? We'll do this at the dinner table. What was your high today? What was your low today? And so you can do something like that with your team. So they would share one positive, which if you're going with the rose and thorn would obviously be the rose. And then one thing that was more negative that happened to them this past week. And then that would be the thorn. So a high and a low, a rose and a thorn.
I love those. Trish, you also have some good ones that you do with your classes. Why don't you share those? I know you mentioned one on another. You made Chrissy answer one of your questions, but why don't you share a few of those?
Some of my favorites, I like to ask, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? The why is the key here, because the why is how we get to know one another. I use these a lot in my virtual classes, but also started doing in my in-person because they're so fun. But with the virtual classes, because you are sitting there and you're just a bunch of boxes, it really is harder to create those connections. So by sharing those kind of things, we can do that. One of the other ones I will say is, because I I love the power of teleportation. That's one of my favorites. And so I will say something like, I was granted the powers of teleportation overnight. If I could take you anywhere in the world, off-world, real, imagined, forward or time, backward in time, where would you want to go and why? Another one that I know Julie loves is, if you could be any animal, real or imagined, what would it be and why? So those are probably my three favorites.
Yeah, I really like those. And the thing I like about most of those is it can change depending on the day, sort of like
True.
the value backgrounds. And so you can keep using it, like if you, usually when I do the seminars, so most of our seminars are 2 to 3 days, I'll ask, okay, so has your animal changed? Because that can give you like an insight into how the person's feeling that day, And mine certainly changes on the day. Sometimes I feel like a sloth.
Yes.
And sometimes I feel like, a tiger or a dragon or, whatever the case may be. But
I had someone last week, she wanted to be a skunk. And she was just like, that's how she was like, nope, I want to be a skunk. I want people to leave me alone. I wouldn't want them anywhere near me. I loved it. Or she could get, people that bothered her just, oh, here you go.
Yeah, that's great.
Had me rolling.
And the point of it is that you get to know your employees on a different level, like the outside of just what they are capable of at work, but like really getting to know them on a more personal level, which is going to help them be more engaged, which is going to help you better connect to them, which is going to make you a better manager.
Truth.
Yeah.
It's all about the connections.
Yes. A couple more. So again, this is from the Harvard Business Review article, which we will put in the show notes, but avoid the blame game. So all great leaders know that the buck stops with you. Your job is now to protect the team. So you take the blame when something goes wrong and give the credit to others when something goes right. Now, this doesn't mean that you don't hold people accountable, but the important thing as a manager is that your team knows that you have their back. And they want to know that you're not going to throw them under the bus or you're not going to just like dump and run. So we need to make sure that you avoid the blame game. When things do go wrong, use that as an opportunity to problem solve as a group. So you want to acknowledge what went wrong and then work with your team to come up with ideas for how to improve the process going forward. So look at it as a team failure, approach it as a team failure. Again, you're going to deal with any individual failures on a one-to-one basis, in the proper setting. But for your team, you want to acknowledge it as a point of improvement going forward.
I think that's awesome. How many times have I said that already? Man, this is a good one. We've got some great tips.
Yeah.
In our, or in one of my earlier tips, I mentioned finding yourself a mentor. And I do want to bring that up again because they talked about that in this Harvard Business Review article. And let's just share that stat. 65% of new managers admitted to feeling uncertain or anxious about their new role. Y'all, it's normal. As a matter of fact,
you're not alone.
Yeah, you're not alone. This is a whole new set of skills for you. It's something that you haven't done before. It's okay that it's scary, but you need to, instead of being paralyzed in that fear, you need to take the steps to grow. So ask for help. I'm going to say it again. Ask for help, whether it is getting yourself a mentor or asking for training from HR, hiring someone even outside of your organization, looking up articles and reading how you can get better. There's tons of books out there. So ask for help and then actually apply it.
Concept.
Yeah. Thanks. Do you have any final thoughts, Julie?
I think what I want to end with is that, again, we have been directing most of our comments to people who are brand new to management. But even if you're a seasoned manager and you're thinking to yourself, man, I wish I had done some of these things when I was starting out, know that you can start over at any time. It will actually show your employees that you trust them enough to admit that maybe you didn't do things quite as well as you could have, and that you're learning and you're growing. And as you learn and grow, you want to start applying those new skills that you're learning. And so it can be an opportunity to just kind of reset. You can have one of those meetings where you say, like, you know what? I feel like maybe we're not all communicating in the best way possible. So let's talk about how we should be communicating. And let's make it a group effort, because we all have a part in that. We all play a part in it. And I am not, the king here, but you can use that as a real trust building and team building exercise. So again, for new managers, this is your chance to really start things out on the right foot and to set yourself up for success. And managers who have been at it for some time, this is your opportunity to make things even better or to reset if you need to.
And I think that does show your employees that they could also do the same thing, right? Oh, hey, yeah, I could make a change. I could. It's just such a great way to be a leader, to be able to say, I didn't do it the best. And so this is how I want to go forward. I think that your employees will respect that and will probably kind of emulate that same behavior.
Absolutely. I feel like, the leaders that I have really admired and respected are the ones who haven't been afraid to admit that they screwed up somewhere along the way.
100%.
And that they learned from it. We don't need perfect people. They're exhausting.
Agreed.
And they don't exist. They just pretend that they exist. But, we don't need that. And nobody's going to be perfect at this, particularly because you're dealing with other humans. So mistakes will be made. But as long as you can admit it and handle it in the right manner, then you're actually going to strengthen those relationships. And I know we've talked about that in prior episodes as well. Okay. So Trisha's drinking water. So
I've
we're
turned
not going
it into
to
wine.
Magic.
All right. I wish I had the capability.
Abracadabra.
Yes. I knew you wouldn't.
Magic. Had to get it in there. Yes. Okay. Well, so my wine is just getting lovelier, So. No, I actually really do like this. So again, it's Michael David Winery. It's a Sauvignon Blanc from Lodi, California. I think it was about $15. So it wasn't like super expensive.
Nice.
And it is a super pretty bottle though. So like if you need a pretty label, and I'm going to try to show it to Trisha, but it's like embossed.
Ooh,
and
that
it's
is
like
pretty.
It's got this really nice like wax, I don't know, seal. So it's got a very pretty presentation. It would be a nice gift wine if you've got people who really like Sauvignon Blanc. So, I
like
give
us.
it, yes, I give it 2 glasses up.
Oh my gosh. We do need to get our rating system together.
Right, I know, we got to figure that out.
That'll be one of our goals when we're out in Chicago in a couple weeks.
Yes. Hey, and if you're listening, you should join us in Chicago. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Wine. We hope that, again, if you are a new manager who was listening, you feel a little bit better about your new role. Know that we believe in you, and we know that you are going to find your own way.
We definitely believe in you, and please don't forget to follow us on social and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Cheers!